I had no doubt of my mother's tenderness, but knowing the character and way of thinking of my father, I foresaw that my love would not touch him very much, and that he would call it youthful folly. I frankly confessed this to Marya Ivanovna, but in spite of this I resolved to write to my father as eloquently as possible to ask his blessing. I showed my letter to Marya Ivanovna, who found it so convincing and touching that she had no doubt of success, and gave herself up to the feelings of her heart with all the confidence of youth and love. I made peace with Fabrin during the early days of my convalescence. Ivan Kuzmich said to me, reproaching me for the duel, "You know, Petr Andreevich, properly speaking, I ought to put you under arrest, but you are already sufficiently punished without that." As to Alexey Ivanich, he is confined by my order, and under strict guard, in the corn magazine, and Vasilisa Egorovna has his sword under lock and key. He will have time to reflect and repent at his ease. I was too happy to cherish the least rancor. I began to intercede for Fabrin, and the good commandant, with his wife's leave, agreed to set him at liberty. Fabrin came to see me. He expressed deep regret for all that had occurred, declared it was all his fault, and begged me to forget the past. Not being of a rancorous disposition, I heartily forgave him both our quarrel and my wound. I saw in his slander the irritation of wounded vanity and rejected love, so I generously forgave my unhappy rival. I was soon completely recovered, and was able to go back to my quarters. I impatiently awaited the answer to my letter, not daring to hope, but trying to stifle sad forebodings that would arise. I had not yet attempted any explanation as regarded Vasilisa Egorovna and her husband. But my courtship could be no surprise to them, as neither Marya nor myself made any secret of our feelings before them, and we were sure beforehand of their consent. At last, one fine day, Savelich came into my room with a letter in his hand. I took it trembling. The address was written in my father's hand. This prepared me for something serious, since it was usually my mother who wrote, and he only added a few lines at the end. For a long time I could not make up my mind to break the seal. I read over the solemn address. To my son, Petr Andreevich Granev, District of Orenburg, Fort Belogorsk. I tried to guess from my father's handwriting in what mood he had written the letter. At last I resolved to open it, and I did not need to read more than the first few lines to see that the whole affair was at the devil. Here are the contents of this letter. My son Petr, we received the 15th of this month the letter in which you ask our parental blessing and our consent to your marriage with Maria Ivanovna, the Myronov daughter. And not only have I no intention of giving you either my blessing or my consent, but I intend to come and punish you well for your follies, like a little boy, in spite of your officer's rank, because you have shown me that you are not fit to wear the sword entrusted to you for the defense of your country, and not for fighting duels with fools like yourself. I shall write immediately to Andrei Karlovich to beg him to send you away from Fort Belogorsk to some place still further removed, so that you may get over this folly. Upon hearing of your duel and wound, your mother fell ill with sorrow, and she is still confined to her bed. What will become of you? I pray God may correct you, though I scarcely dare trust in His goodness. Your father. A.G. The perusal of this letter aroused in me a medley of feelings. The harsh expressions which my father had not scrupled to make use of hurt me deeply. The contempt which he cast on Maria Ivanovna appeared to me as unjust as it was unseemly, while, finally, the idea of being sent away from Fort Belogorsk dismayed me. But I was, above all, grieved at my mother's illness. I was disgusted with Savelich, never doubting that it was he who had made known my duel to my parents. After walking up and down a while in my little room, I suddenly stopped short before him, and said to him, angrily, "It seems that it did not satisfy you that, thanks to you, I've been wounded and at death's door, but that you must also want to kill my mother as well." Savelich remained motionless, as if struck by a thunderbolt. "Have pity on me, sir," he exclaimed, almost sobbing. "What is it you deign to tell me, that I am the cause of your wound?" But God knows I was only running to stand between you and Alexei Ivanch's sword. Accursed old age alone prevented me. "What have I now done to your mother? What did you do?" I retorted. Who told you to write and denounce me? Were you put in my service to be a spy upon me? I denounce you, replied Savéliitch, in tears. Oh, good heavens! Here, be so good as to read what master has written to me, and see if it was I who denounced you. With this he drew from his pocket a letter, which he offered to me, and I read as follows. Shame on you, you old dog, for never writing and telling me anything about my son, Petr Andreitch, in spite of my strict orders, and that it should be from strangers that I learn his follies. Is it thus you do your duty and act up to your master's wishes? I shall send you to keep the pigs, old rascal, for having hid from me the truth, and for your weak compliance with the lad's whims. On receipt of this letter, I order you to let me know directly the state of his health, which, judging by what I hear, is improving, and to tell me exactly the place where he was hit, and if the wound be well healed. Evidently Savéliitch had not been the least to blame, and it was I who had insulted him by my suspicions and reproaches. I begged his pardon, but the old man was inconsolable. That I should have lived to see it, repeated he. These be the thanks that I have deserved of my masters for all my long service. I am an old dog. I'm only fit to keep pigs, and in addition to all this I am the cause of your wound. No, my father, Petr Andreitch, 'tis not I who am to blame, it is rather the confounded Masu. It was he who taught you to fight with those iron spits, stamping your foot, as though by ramming and stamping you could defend yourself from a bad man. It was, indeed, worthwhile spending money upon a Masu to teach you that. But who could have taken the trouble to tell my father what I had done? The general? He did not seem to trouble himself much about me, and, indeed, Ivan Kuzmich had not thought it necessary to report my duel to him.